Hi, my name is Sage Turk, and 2 years ago, something big happened that would change my life forever. Despite being an active Mormon, Christian, and believer for over 33 years, I lost my faith in God. What I didn't lose was my happiness, my hope, and the curiosity to explore every facet of this crazy adventure called life. And like every adventure, sometimes we can use a little guide. This week's episode, Hope, starring me, Sage, and my special guest host, Bob Caswell, also the Asshole Atheist Cred Scale.
Infants on Thrones presents The New Atheist Guide to Not Being a Total Asshole.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the New Atheist Guide to Not Being a Total Asshole. I am your host, Sage Turk, and with me today is my special co-host, Mr. Bob Caswell. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Sage?
I am doing great, Bob. So, listeners out there, I'm sure, recognize Bob as, Bob, are you one of the founding infants? Or are you one of the original infants? Is that correct?
I think I am, yeah. And do they really recognize me? I'm not Scott. I'm the other. No, yeah, I am one of the 6 founding members of Infants on Thrones. It feels so prestigious to say that for some reason. Mostly it's in my head, but I'll take it.
We'll take it. And Bob, I think most people would recognize your major claim to fame, which is the Mormon Cred Scale, which was your invention. Is that right?
Yes, it was. You can blame me for that. I love it when it's gotten popular enough that people just drop the Bob and they're like the Mormon Cred Scale, like it's just existed, which is very flattering and it tickles my heart, I guess, when someone like Glenn or others will hear somebody bring it up. Yeah, on the Mormon Cred Scale, da da da, and he's like, "You mean Bob's Mormon Cred Scale?" And I'm like,
Make sure it's attributed. Man, if
That's
only
right.
you had like patented that thing,
I
you'd be
know.
rolling in it.
Trademark, ding, No, it's all good. It's cool. I'm glad it's proven useful or emotionally upset enough people that it's not going away. So
So, so I have a little surprise for you, Bob. Actually, I've invented a Cred Scale myself. I don't know if you know this.
oh, I love it. Okay, let's do this. So what kind of cred scale?
So this is the asshole atheist Cred Scale to see how big of an asshole we really are. So
Okay.
you want to take it? You want to see how it goes?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it's more than just the number like 1 to 7 or whatever. What's the official one where I want to like attribute it to Richard Dawkins, but that's really really like not accurate, and that's how much of an atheist I am. I'm like, yeah, there's this thing about atheism, and then there's this other guy, his name is Dawkins, so they're all connected. And
There's just like this guy. He just came up with this scale. I don't really care.
I don't know who made it up.
Doesn't make a difference to me.
Right.
Well, this isn't how big of an atheist you are. This is how big of an asshole atheist you are. So,
Got it.
so you
Little
ready?
different. Yeah, I'm ready.
And this one is it's free form. Some of them are going to be yes, or some are going to be no. Each question's a little different because that's just how I roll. So, you ready?
I like it.
Question 1. Do you identify as an atheist? Yes or no?
Oh, it's so binary. Oh. Yes. Yeah. I don't say I'm not one. If so sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm tabulating that score. There we go.
Wait.
Not a
So
bad
wait, does that
answer.
make me an asshole or what?
We'll find out. We'll find out.
You
Here we
have
go.
conviction. You therefore. Okay.
All right. Question 2. Do you identify as an asshole?
No, I don't think so. I would like not to. Is that an appropriate? Is that an okay answer? See, look,
Okay,
I'm
let's see.
I'm asking if I'm
Not
okay. So how much of an asshole can I be? I can't. I'm not that
not
assertive.
not willing to admit answer. Okay, good. Uh,
No.
all right, number three. Number three. Here we go. How long was it after your loss of belief until you could comfortably flip off the sky?
Fli- uh, several months, years. That's a very strange question to flip off the
Okay.
sky. Um,
Okay, I'll put several months. I'll take the first answer. There we go.
okay.
Question number four. Uh, have you ever referred to religious individuals as any of the following? One, sheeple.
Um, yes.
Two, Jesus freaks.
I'm going to say no. I don't think I've ever actually used that one.
Okay. Three, Christian right-wing nut jobs.
Yeah, probably.
And four, God douches.
No, I haven't used that one. I kind of like it. I mean, no, that's very disrespectful.
All right, tabulating scores. Here we go. All right, number five. Have you ever rolled your eyes at any of the following?
Oh, I was just going to say in general,
A,
yes, all the time.
specifically at a happy family walking to church.
Maybe. Yeah, we better go with a yes.
Okay. B, a God is my co-pilot bumper sticker.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
C, rappers thanking God for their success.
Yeah. Yeah. Basketball players too.
Okay, good. Noted. D, D is sweet little children in their pastel outfits singing in a children's gospel choir about Jesus' blood.
That's just so adorable. I'm going to say no. I have not rolled my eyes at that.
Never. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And the last one, modern day churches with hip names like The Rock or The River.
Yeah, I've received flyers and I have many a story of rolling my eyes at come to our youthful, joyous young group of Christian people. Like, no.
There's a here seen like an empty storefront and you can't tell what it is. Like it's called like the Vineyard or Family Victory or the Rock. There's a new building in my house called the Rock. You guys some handing out some flyers outside. You coming on down to the Rock this weekend? We got live music, food, drinks, stuff for the kids. That sounds like church. No, it's a teen center where it's a community-based health initiatives and a pregnancy. Yeah, it's church. I wouldn't get mad, but they have tried to trick me. Want to come to a show? It's a clean show. Sure, where's it at? Cool new coffee shop. Oh yeah, what's it called? Crossroads. No! Stop lurking behind your Jimi Hendrix font. If they want to get the numbers in and do the switcheroo, just call it something everybody wants to go to. You coming on down to Sex Hole? Yes. Shouldn't even have to advertise. Sex Hole? Everybody wants to go to Sex Hole. What's going on inside? We're gonna come on in to find out. Oh, man. Oh. That sounds like church.
Okay, tabulated. All right, question 6. Have you ever called Jesus a zombie, specifically in a house of worship?
No, I have not.
Okay, good. Question 7. Do you currently have a Darwin fish anywhere on your car?
Nope, I do not.
Okay, noted. Question 8. Do you regularly say, God dang it, showing clearly that you don't want to curse, but you have no problem taking the Lord's name in vain?
No, I don't do that one, but I like it.
All right, question 9. Can you find Religulous, the God that wasn't there, and or Penn and Teller's bullshit in your recently watched Netflix queue?
I think I've seen two of those three, but not recently. So I'm gonna say no. See, look how
Okay.
not
All right.
I'm not. I feel like I'm not as much of an asshole as you were thinking leading into this. We'll see though.
Yeah, that's only a half. That's a half point. We'll put that down there. Okay.
Okay.
Final question. This is question number 10. Have you ever referred to the question of the existence of God as, and I quote, the stupidest question ever?
I want to reach as many people as I can. And if I think it's a stupid question to begin with as to whether or not there's some imaginary being in the sky looking after us, I think that is just unrealistic and dumb and not worthy of our focus. I think that just adds to me just saying, why introduce a label that's going to turn a bunch of people off if I think it's a stupid proposition from the start?
Yes, I think I have been guilty of that one. Yeah, I like that as a conversation starter and ender. So
The stupidest question ever. Okay, let's see. Tabulating up. We carry the one. Okay, let's see. The results are coming in. Oh, Bob, I've got some bad news for you.
oh no, where am I on the scale? And what is the scale?
It's totally binary.
Oh,
And
it's just
totally
yes or no.
decided by me right now. Yes, the answer is yes. You're an asshole atheist. As am I. I scored even higher on it than I think you did because most of this is based off of me.
How close of an asshole atheist are you to Sage Turk? Okay.
That's right. Yes. So from 0 to 10.
We're
So
kindred spirits.
kindred spirits, and that's the whole point of this podcast, Bob. So by the end of this podcast, we're going to cure ourselves of our atheism. Oh
Okay.
wait, no, our assholeism. We're going to keep
right.
the atheism.
One of those two. Okay.
Oh, perfect. So, Bob, today's episode is about hope, which was not chosen just because of your name. The whole
Right.
Bob Hope. That's where I'm going with that, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah. I like Bob Hope. He has one of my favorite quotes. Let me give you my favorite Bob Hope quote. It's I do.
Okay. Well, that's great.
Yeah. I do charity for all religions. I'd hate to be let out of heaven on a technicality. I thought it was pretty good. It's something like that. I'm
Pretty
paraphrasing.
good.
But yeah.
Pretty good. And coming from Bob Hope, like probably the most famous of all celebrity atheists, I think.
That's true.
So Bob, jumping right into the topic today, which I'm really excited to talk about because earlier, the last episode with Tom, we talked about fear, so it was a little bit of a downer, to be honest. Today we're talking about hope, which I hear is a topic that you have some affinity for. Is that true?
It is true. I like hope. I'm a optimist or a realist or somewhere in between on the realist to optimist scale. I'm a realist optimist or an optimist realist. I don't know. I made that up. We're making things up.
I like it. Yeah, the optimist, realist, atheist. It rolls off the tongue. It's really good.
Right? It's really okay.
So I want to kind of back us up a little bit and start with talking a little bit about hope, or our perception of what hope even was as believers.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell me. So what did hope mean as a believer to you?
Well, it's crazy, right? Because it can mean whatever you want it to mean. It was a pretty interesting gospel principle back in the day, because it wasn't as co-opted as faith or charity. It's part of that three pattern: faith, hope, and charity. And charity, you could sub in you could sub in love if you wanted, depending on what kind of personality you are. You have some people like love more, some people like charity more, but they're kind of interchangeable in the gospel. So I thought it was kind of like the bastard stepchild as compared to the favorite gospel children of faith and charity. And I think
that's right. Yeah, hope was kind of like the loser little brother to those three.
Right. Like if there were sacrament meeting talks assigned, hope would never be the closing one, right? It's always like
Right.
the child talk at the beginning, or like, this is let's have brother so and so's wife give a talk on hope before he like dives into like the real topic.
Because we're only doing this because we love three patterns. Like that's kind of the only reason it exists. But
Exactly, we had to throw something in the middle of faith and charity. So in retrospect, I think that's why I liked it so much, is because putting it a different way, pragmatically, it was kind of the one virtue about me. It was like sanctioned selfishness because
Oh yeah,
faith
yeah.
was faith was always super messy, and it was like um, when you come right down to it, you can read an Alma, you can dance around what it all means, but it kind of just in Mormonism it sort of boiled down to um, an explanation for why you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do because you don't really know how things are really going to turn out or what's real and what's truthy. It's just have faith, and it'll work out. And then on the other side, charity, I think, if I were to rank them, I think is a little better than faith, but it was still about loving God first and foremost. And then secondly, like, if you have time after that, then maybe think about your neighbor too. But it was never about yourself, really. It was always like,
Right.
being a charitable person was being super selfless and thinking of others. But then there's hope, like sandwiched in the middle, which is like, and so you don't kill yourself. Here's, we're going to throw you a bone. Have some hope. And we're not going to really tell you what that means, or, we're not going to tie too much stigma to it. Just feel good every
Right.
once in a while. So here you go. Have some hope.
It's like, yeah, it's like the participation ribbon. It's like, just thanks for being here. You get the hope ribbon.
That's right. Honorable mention. You tried.
Yeah, good job. Everyone's a winner as long as you have hope. No, I think you bring up a really good point. I don't even know if I had thought about it in quite those terms because in sort of a typical sort of Mormon believer fashion, we like to sort of use words in ways that they don't actually mean. And faith was this very resolute, like faith actually meant no, and there was sort of a line drawn in the sand. You were either over here in the faith camp, where you don't question at all, or you could be
Yeah.
sort of these guys that are like, yeah, I hope, but so it was definitely not just sort of
Yeah.
being the bastard
That's
stepchild of the sort of qualities you want as a believer, but you're also kind of put in this camp of like the trying to be cool kids. It's like you got the cool kids
right.
table of faith, and you got sort of like the loser drama kids over here in the hope
Right. It's
camp.
like it's the weak and the strong. It's like, are you one of those faith people in this camp where it's super strong and you just sub it for? It's true because faith people nobody really knows what it is on its own, and so it's either no or hope. That's a really interesting way of putting
Yeah,
it. It's like, are you a no faith Mormon or are you a hope faith Mormon? Because if
right.
I mean, it's maybe a euphemism for iron rod or what's the other one? The opposite of iron rod. I forget the Leahona. Yeah, back in the day on the
Oh
Bloggernacle, it
yeah,
was,
there you go.
are you a Leahona Mormon or an iron rod Mormon? Or are you a conservative Mormon or a liberal Mormon? I mean, we could go all day with regurgitating these labels, and I think this is a more fun one because we're inventing it on the fly. But it's like, are you a no faither Mormon or a hope faither Mormon or whatever?
Yeah,
So
that's exactly right. And I even remember at certain points towards, the end of sort of my faith cycle, like thinking, okay, I'm going to be one of those cool guys that's going to stand up, and I'm not going to say, I know the church is true. I'm just going to say, I hope the church is true. And look how confident I can be in just in not going past the faith line and thinking I'm cool, but realizing everybody's just like, oh, this guy again.
yeah, and you think you're like making everyone think really deeply or something, and mostly you're just making them uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I can just hear people going like, hope's not a thing. Stop trying to make hope a thing. Like
Yeah,
it's never going to be a thing. Like
stop
faith
it.
is where it's at.
Right. No one cares but you. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So thinking about, okay, hope in terms of I guess your perspective or belief in God or the church, but what about just like hope in sort of like life or in the future and that sort of thing? Do you feel like it was different as a believer, just as the true concept of general hope?
Not really, because hope is one of those phrases, people will say things like, well, here's hoping, or I hope this happens. And there's no like taking it in vain or saying it in a way that it's like I'm saying hope in a non-religious way, and I have to say it specifically with all of these qualifiers, because I feel like when you talk about faith or charity, again, you can't use those secularly without really making it obvious that that's what you're doing, because otherwise the default is like, oh, you're using one of those weird religious words, and I don't know if I like that, or you can't really use it
Right,
in a
yeah.
business setting. But like hope, you can use freely. So it's cool. I as a believer even maybe I wouldn't have thought of it consciously this way, but I feel like subconsciously hope was nice because it was like a connection to the outside world. It was like sanctioned worldliness. You could have hope, and it meant the same thing to an outsider as it did to an insider in a lot of ways, and it was a nice connective tissue that way. It wasn't so fully loaded and jaded with all sorts of stuff in true Mormon style, which is I don't know how it escaped that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. It is one of those sort of few words that we didn't twist into something that it's not. Like hope. You're exactly right. It means the same thing to almost everybody. But I do like what you said earlier about. I think if there was some way if we could take the words like hope and faith and charity and create like the business version of them, like business faith, like take those words back. Like I have
Right.
faith, but it's business faith. It's more like a
Business faith.
business hope when you think about it. Yeah.
Right.
The secular faith,
Right.
But no, I think I think back as well, and it's interesting to me how hope did change a little bit because as a believer, my focus, like I don't know, it's interesting. My hope for things, could always be I only had to take like sort of one step in the direction of hope because I had this sort of implicit understanding that sort of whatever I sort of dreamed sort of would happen or good things I assumed would happen like probably would, because when you believe sort of in God or whatever, it's like your hopes are sort of the first manifestations of your wishes for sort of a perfect life or everything to be taken care of. And as long as you've got that kind of like little like I'm going to push it out there, my thoughts for what I want to see happen in the world, there's like a true belief that it's going to come back to you, that is actually going to manifest. So I don't know if this is making sense, but in a way it's like me hoping for something was literally planting a seed that I was pretty sure, I was confident was actually going to happen. Like I had so much more confidence that the things I hoped for would actually arrive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think we're getting at the difference between religious hope and business hope or whatever, because
business hope. Yeah,
I'm just gonna run with that. Because it's true. When you were hopeful as a believer, there was a little bit of a God loves me. I'm asking, in that second half of my prayer script, I'm asking for things, and so I'm trying to articulate my hope. And if anything happens, I need to attribute it back to God. Never mind when bad things happen, that gets really complicated with God, of course, but you're just being tried and having a challenge or whatever. But when good things happen, then you're like, oh, that, you kind of do the false equivalency or the, that's not the right term. Like it's just a false association where it's like, oh, that must be because I asked for it in this way, or I had faith, or, God loves me. Whereas, in the secular version of hope is much more disjointed or disconnected from why things happen, and more about just the perception or the feeling of being more optimistic, or just how you approach things. I remember my grandfather, back when I was a kid. He's passed away several years ago, but he had this phrase, project your thinking. And he was a really successful guy, at least in the worldly perspective. Of course, he wasn't a Mormon, and my parents were always like, they let him have his influence on me, but I wonder if they were always kind of like a little, well, he's super successful, and hopefully Bobby won't, take the wrong things from him or whatever. But anyway, so he had this phrase, project your thinking, and I really like that and he used to tell me, like, there are a lot of things in life you can't control, but if you plan ahead and project your thinking and really want to be successful and want a life of abundance, you can do your part to get it. And that's what I did. And you hope for the best. And, a lot of it is luck, but there's a lot of it that isn't, that you control. And so I just remember that side of hope always playing a part in my life is just like, well, I'm going to do what I can in the places that I control, but part of it is luck, and part of it is circumstances that are out of my control. And I guess there was a transition. I'm sort of rambling here, but I'm just thinking, after the fact, I guess as an active Mormon, that luck was less luck and more God and God's love or something, or I'm doing the right thing,
Right.
keeping
It's
the
like
commandments. But
it's a manifest destiny sort of thing, even though that's a that's a loaded word. But when I think of it, it's like no, this was gonna happen. I'm the kid holding out my hand like the Darth Vader suit, that VW commercial, and the
yeah,
dad is clicking on the car, and I'm like, oh, I controlled that. I did that. Which hearing you speak through it, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if as a believer I ever got to experience the full cycle of hope. And by that I mean, since I already assumed things were going to happen when they did, I don't think I realized how incredible or how lucky I actually was
right.
for my hope to have manifested itself. So it was just like, oh yeah, I mean, of course. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
oh, I
we
sure
do have.
hope that my kid turns out okay, or I hope that this horrible injury, like I hope I don't experience X, Y, or Z, and then you don't, or things work out okay, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, duh, of course they were going to.
Of course they were going to. I mean, we have the truth. It's the one true church on purpose, and that plays a huge role. And that reminds me. I mean, this is a weird comparison or random thought, but I was talking to somebody the other day about how Mitt Romney, when he was running for president, I had some friends who were, they're Facebook friends because they're from my past. Really, I don't interact with them as much, but they're active Mormons and they were involved in Romney's campaign, and it was like such a shock when he didn't win because, through that whole process, you hope he's going to win as somebody who's
Right, yeah.
drinking the Kool-Aid and an active Mormon, and this is like the Mormon moment and all of this stuff, and it's like the logical conclusion is that he would win, and then when he didn't, and like people were doing studies and stuff way in advance of him not winning, that was like, there's not that great of a chance for him to win.
Right.
But like if you were a Mormon and active in that camp, you just ignored all that because you had Mormon hope, which is just like God will sort it all out. And then it didn't happen, and then you have to retroactively like explain away why God didn't. Well, it wasn't time, or the world isn't ready yet for a Mormon president. So
Right, yeah. Well, that actually brings up, I think, a second sort of interesting angle to hope as a believer, because on one hand, I really was sure that the things I hoped for would happen, but secondarily, when those things actually did not manifest, then it's almost like I guess I was wrong to have hoped for that then. Like maybe I was like faulty, or I did something wrong, and so I think that part of me started to, you hoped for things, but then you were also sort of afraid to hope for certain things because if they didn't manifest, that personally like reflected upon you. So you couldn't just neutrally hope, and you're like, I really hope this happens. It's really weird thinking about it because I did have a lot of hope, I think, as a believer, but I also think I was scared of it a little bit.
yeah, and well, and the thing with Mormonism is everything is so far into the future after you're dead that you can always revert back to like, well, you were hoping for temporal things, or you weren't patient enough. It'll all work
right.
out. It's too bad you lost your arm or have cancer or whatever affliction you have. It's temporary. Your child died.
Yeah, Mitt Romney will be president in the eternities. It's fine.
That's right.
It
doesn't.
It's after he's dead. It's the calling after in the afterlife.
It doesn't matter what didn't come true that you really hoped would. It will eventually, after this life, please pay your tithing and go to church.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Although now I want to see the movie Mitt Romney Ghost President.
Well, they did have that documentary that came out after he lost. It's like, here's what he was like on the campaign. Spoiler alert, kind of like you'd think. Sort of
Not spoiler alert. Exactly right. So Bob, let's talk a little bit about let's call this losing hope, if you will, or at least how our hope or beliefs, really how our hope changed as our beliefs changed. Did you see or did you feel an actual shift in the things you hoped for, or what hope meant to you, like in tandem with your loss of faith?
Sort of. I think, unlike all of those other gospel principles, where sometimes you strip it away and you just want to throw away the word because it doesn't feel useful anymore. Like faith feels a little bit that way for me. Charity, not so bad, but it still is kind of I don't know, it's such a feel-good term, and it's fine, but it's not it's not my
Well,
thing because I don't like helping people.
chari-
No.
charity is also one of those things. I mean, just as the tiny aside, it's like it has such a clear meaning. It's so easy to understand. And then there's that scripture that calls it the pure love of Christ that just throws it all out of whack. You're like, I understand this, and it's like, no, you don't, because the scripture says it means a different thing, and it's like,
Because
oh, it doesn't. So
right,
so what? So then what do I do?
then what? Now you're messing with me. I thought I had it. Yeah, but
So
I think
close.
I think with hope, like I revert back to kind of my grandfather's definition of control what you can control, work at what's important to you, and hope for the best, and just realize that there's a lot of luck involved, and it's less about attributing it to something or someone, or trying to make sense of the order of operations or why something happens, and more about I don't know, just now I'm going to sound like a self-help book or something, but just like feeling good about yourself, and having the self-confidence to realize that you can do it, except for when you can't. But you know,
You really do sound like a self-help book.
I know
This will
I'm
work except when it doesn't.
pay me money.
That's right.
But if I can quote from Mormon Doctrine, this book, Mormon Doctrine, I just love it to death. And it's kind of like one of Joseph Smith's wives, it's like the church really wants it to go away and pretend like it never happened. It's out of print, but I think I just want to bring it up on every episode of Infants on Thrones, because you can pick any topic, and then you can just read what Bruce R. McConkie had to say about it, and you're like, there it is. That's what Mormons originally thought about it.
Perfect insight into how everyone actually believed, just didn't want to actually admit it.
Right. Okay. So here's hope, according to Mormon doctrine. Hope
Okay.
is the desire. Hope is the desire of faithful people to gain eternal salvation in the kingdom of God hereafter. It is not a flimsy, ethereal desire, one without assurance that the desired consumption will be received, but a desire coupled with full expectation of receiving the coveted reward. He goes on, but I think that's just so indicative. I mean, it's like, oh, this is real. This is a big deal. I mean, it's a mystery box, and you have no idea how it'll work, or what clothes you'll be wearing. But after you die, the reward is there. We don't know if it's a piece of cake, if it's candy, but it's a for sure thing. And so, yeah,
It's
for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's not a flimsy like it's not the word hope like you would think. Nope, we're
Right.
taking it back to it's totally it's gonna happen. So it's really just knowing that something's gonna happen.
And it's
And
so
knowing
typical
that
Mormon.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's so typical Mormon to talk about all of the meta descriptors and talk around something, but never actually talk about the thing. So it's like, it's amazing. It's going to happen in the future. It's for sure, guys. It's really happening, and it's a reward, and it's you do what's right, and then you're going to love it. And it's like, okay, but what is it? And how does it work? Well, it's like, it's eternal life, and it's with the families and stuff. But logistically, how does it work, and what does it, Well, I mean, it's too many questions, Bob. I mean, it's like you're gonna.
It's like
just
I'm sorry. If you just don't understand what it means, then I just can't explain it to you. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. It's like an
right.
angry girlfriend. You're like, if you don't know why, you don't know what hope is, then I just can't tell you. Like you're just
You have the spirit of contention. I mean, really, you're digging in the wrong places. You're asking the wrong questions. Just trust me,
I mean,
you're
we
gonna
all
love
understand. We don't need to actually explain it, do we? I mean, I understand. You understand, right? Cool. Okay, good.
it. All right, yeah. Moving on. So yeah,
Well, and
so
it's funny because
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that explanation is exactly why at a certain point I honestly did feel like I did lose hope through my my little faith journey, because I was told that it was this for sure thing. It was this sort of solid expectation driven sort of thing. And when I realized that I was losing all the things I had those expectations in, like, oh, you mean I'm not going to get the pie? I'm not going to get the mansion and the jetpack and all the rest.
The jetpack.
Suddenly I was like, well, then what's the point in having hope if all the stuff I actually hoped for is probably not going to happen? Did you ever hit a moment like that?
Yeah. I mean, I like to think of it as I lost hope in the church. I lost hope in the I think of the church now as like an MMO, like this massive multiplayer online game where
Yeah, it's
you're
like World of
constant
Warcraft. Yeah.
yeah, like well, you're constantly leveling up and to keep yourself engaged, even if you check all the temple worthy boxes, you still have to like iterate on the higher level ways of being like
Right.
a super Mormon because you just keep grinding away because that's the game you're playing, that's the system you're in, and you have this hope that you're part of a structure, you're part of a system that's going to really reward you in the end, and that all faded away, and um, you know once that was gone, I would say yeah, I did lose hope in that sense, but what's interesting, since bringing this back to being an atheist asshole, I didn't necessarily lose hope in an afterlife or the unknown or uh, living again with my family or whatever. Like Mormons, the Mormon doctrine usually dangles in front of you as a carrot that you never actually get because they don't know what it is, but it's after you die, so they don't ever have to like fully explain it like we said. But just
Yeah.
because I lost hope in the church and in the structure and the system that was supposedly going to give me that didn't necessarily mean that everything got stripped away. There's still a part of me, even to this day, even though it's kind of a faint little flicker of a candle, that's like, you know, um, it'd be cool if I existed after this life and I had my same friends and family and they were here.
Right. Yeah.
So there's still some hope there. I don't know.
Well, I think that's. I mean, I think for me that illustrates the change in what hope is to me. I feel like now I have
Less
almost different
certainty.
levels. I feel like there's different levels of hope in my heart now, where I have this sort of, you know, maybe the purest form of hope is really stuff that I know is, it might be super unlikely, just exactly like you're saying, there probably isn't this thing after it, but for me it's almost like, when you're a kid and like, I hate to always go back to like the Santa Claus analogy, but you kind
Yeah.
of know there's no Santa, but it's so fun to play along, and it's like that little magic in your heart that's like, I know he's not, but if he if it turns out that he is, like, that's going to be the best surprise of all time. And so I'm willing to reserve a little piece inside of me that's hopeful for even unlikely things, because if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but the I guess power or relief or joy that this little hope is giving me, like, that's worth something on its own, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. I for sure. And it's like similarly, when Christmas time comes around, I get excited and I do the tree, I do all of the standard stuff. And there's like warm fuzzies in the air, and it's but if you were to pin me down and ask me why I do it or what it means, I just say it's ritual, it's tradition, it's fun, and it
Yeah.
and I want to believe in aspects of it. I want to have hope that this is all rooted in a real story. Like if you think of the Jesus story or whatever other things that are associated with Christmas. But in the end, it's just where I came from. It's who I am. It's part of this experience that I'm living, and for me to still plug into it and you know, give a little, in the sense that like I'm not going to be like bah humbug. No, I'm an
Right. Yeah.
atheist. Um, I tap into the old school way of things, even if like in the end it's kind of a probability game. If but then that sort of ruins the spirit of it to be like, well, 99.99%, a lot of this stuff is that way, that
Right.
it's not going to happen, or there's no chance of an afterlife and all that kind of stuff. But why give up on the sliver of a chance, since we don't know?
I mean, it's almost like the thrill of gambling. It's like
Right.
when there's that slight possibility, it's like that's what makes it exciting. Like, I might win, and then you don't, and you're like, okay, I realize that the house almost always wins. So,
Exactly.
but
So I'm going to
it's
just
this
pull this
human
lever one more
thing.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's this is sort of the ultimate gamble, but it's thrilling nonetheless. So this concept of the hopeful atheist, as opposed to say the asshole atheist. is is that a thing? The hopeful atheist?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do consider myself an atheist, but I'm not like a reductionist that's constantly every day being like, it doesn't matter what you do or what you say or how you interact with people because all of this was going to disappear and who knows what the world is going to be like 100 years from now. You know, we're a tiny speck and
Right.
you know, you can just be a jerk and it doesn't matter. We're all just pieces of matter that are all going to die and go back into the earth or whatever. And and by the way, the earth is on a trajectory to implode eventually. So why like have progress? And I'm sort of doing this caricature thing with atheism because I feel like, at least for me as a believer, that was kind of one of the stereotypes I attributed to atheism is like, oh, if you don't have religion or if you don't have this certainty or this hope, faith package about the meaning of life and all that, then you
Right.
must be just walking around as a super angry, unfulfilled jerk. But come to find out, when the church fell away, I mean, you go through your phase of being resentful and flipping off the sky or whatever you said. But you after you come through the other side, you're like, oh, I'm still the same person. And generally speaking, back to my little grandfather story, like the optimist in me, the person who valued work and wanted success and hoped for things and hoped I could get lucky again. The first time being lucky, is being like born as a white male into Western society in the 20, second half of the 20th century. That's a pretty good package to start with, and then
Right.
just playing off of that and keep going and hoping for some more luck as I try to do my part on the other side of doing the things that I can control. I did that as a Mormon. I do that now as a ex-Mormon, as a atheist, and it makes me wonder, like maybe the church doesn't have as much of a hold on you. And now I'm like speaking to the proverbial person who's like, oh, I don't want to step out of my comfort zone or the church because then what kind of person would I be? It's like, you'll be fine. You'll just be yourself. You'll be the same person as before.
Well, and I don't know how proverbial they are. I think we've probably got some listening to these words right now. So.
It could be. Yeah.
But I think you bring up, one of the points that that really resonates with me, Bob, was what you just said. That this idea that I'm even here, that I even exist. When you sort of strip away the surety of it all, so that guaranteed gonna happen version of hope is gone, and its place for me is something even more incredible, because if things aren't guaranteed to happen and yet they do, that for me is the full cycle of hope. It's like, I hope for this thing that I have no control over. Doesn't really matter how much I do or do not hope in it, but the fact that good things can happen and have, like being white and male and born in America, is like, already I've gotten more than most of the creatures that have ever existed get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And seeing that, I think to myself, well, that in itself is honestly like one of the most incredible sort of quirks of the universe, that this worked out in my favor. And so it's almost like now I'm hoping for things not because I feel like I deserve it or feel like it's a guarantee or it's a lock. It's just, hey, I have these like positive expectations that I feel like, first off, if there's any need for me to work for it, I've got to do it. Like, I've got to do my part. But also, hey man, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's not necessarily my fault, but when it does, it feels that much more incredible. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. It really does. And it's also it's kind of magical to control your own destiny in that way, in the sense that, like, you could sit around and hope for negative things not to happen, which would be a really depressing life, to be like, today I'm going to hope for not having an earthquake again because I live in California.
Right.
And then,
Right.
Tomorrow, please let's not have a terrorist attack. And the next day, and so hope can be a negative in a sense if you're really on edge and scared to leave the house because you're hoping that a disaster isn't going to happen every single time. I think that's more implicit, and at least for me, I think of those things as like, again, there's just so much swirling around me that is out of my control. And so
Right.
why focus on that and assume that that's going to have any positive effects on your life, because it's going to exist and be what it is independent of your own fear mongering to yourself or whatever, because you're not going to affect that. But if you have hope on the positive things that you can control, um, I don't know. It's again, it can be pretty magical when um, I hope that I do well when I go to a job interview, but I also prepare and I know what the job description is, and I know
Yeah,
I try
yeah.
to predict and foresee what kind of questions they're going to ask, and I'm going to get ready with my responses. But I still to myself, and we all use the trite phrase like, well, I hope for the best. I hope it's going to work out. I hope they hire me. This is just one example, but you hope that thing not because you're not doing anything. It's not like you hope it because um, you're just going to roll the dice and it's all luck based. It's because you're doing a lot on your side. You're doing your part, and then the hope is just like,
Yeah.
hey, I hope that little extra thing that I can't control, all those little things around the circumstance, in this case, a job interview, turn out that I get the job because I did all that other stuff that I do have control over. So I guess my hope now as an atheist asshole is just hoping that the variables that are out of my control that relate to whatever I'm working on um, don't stand in my way. And generally, why would they? I mean, if I work on everything I can control, that's the best I can do, and I hope for the best. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm
no,
talking in
that's
circles a little too much, but that's kind of how it's panned out for me.
well, it's almost like I picture in my mind, it's like when I think about hope as this amorphous thing, it's almost like I'm pie charting out, sort of some slice, some percentage is this thing I'm hoping for. What percent of it is things I can control, exactly like you're saying, and what can I not? And I think my progression has been the things I sort of hoped for as a believer, like the majority of the pie was stuff I really couldn't control because I was hoping that something else was going to take care of all those details, and so it was almost very big hope, very far in the future,
Yeah,
super huge concepts like I hope that my kids turn out okay in the future. I hope that I'm healthy, or I hope that I don't get in a car crash. Things that I almost have no control over, maybe some
right,
tiny bit.
right,
And it's
right.
like now I see the pie starting to shift, and that little tiny slice of things that I can control gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So now, as opposed to saying I hope my kids turn out okay, it's like, you know, I hope I'm a good dad, and I can control a lot of that. And so I think, am I, I'm reading a story to him right now. It's like that's fulfilling this like hope. And so whereas before I was sort of wishing out, and a genie in some way it was granting my wishes. Now it's like, hey, I'm hoping for things that I think I actually have pretty good control over, and it feels really really good when that hope manifests itself, because it's like, all right, I did it. I had this expected outcome, and I did what I needed to put into it, and it worked, and that feels great.
It
And
does.
the fact is now that I'm actually able to I guess quote unquote have pride. I'm able to actually thank myself for it. Feels pretty good too.
The good kind of pride, not that bad kind.
Right? Yeah.
Uh,
Again, another word.
right, exactly. You need a separate episode for that one. Wow. Um, yeah, I well said. I really like the way you visualize that with the kind of the pie chart thing, because I think there's a huge aspect of growth with hope, because we all make mistakes, and um, I know that's abstract. It's like that book, mistakes were made, but not by me. Or if they were, I'm going to talk about them very generally. um, and they were long ago in the past. But even as a father of a newborn baby, I'm bumbling along, and I I have moments where I'm not doing great, at least in my mind, and I want to improve, and I hope that I learn and that I do that, and I always I have hope, or I take solace in the fact that tomorrow is another day. I can try again, or it's not just with raising a kid, but just anything, you come up against a wall, something doesn't work out, you're throwing a curveball. And for me, there's comfort in having this concept of hope just be there to be like, well, that really sucked or that didn't work out, but I'm still here. I still have my wits about me, and tomorrow I'm going to take what I learned from this curveball today and hope that I can grow from that and keep trying. So I think hope kind of plays into that. I don't know, that growth cycle, if that makes any sense.
Right. Very, very well said. So, Bob, we're nearing the end of our hour here, and great stuff. I love talking through this concept of both hope and sort of happiness and how it sort of changes, because well and truly, I never would have imagined for a moment in my believing days that this could be possible, but I really do feel more hopeful, actually, as an atheist, because I guess part of me realizes that, since there is no guaranteed lock destiny of any particular outcome happening in the future, it's like now I can be hopeful kind of about anything I want, and I can... my hope can stretch out as sort of far or as close to me as I need it to, and now it's like, I can have 100 little hopes that can all manifest, and those are just as big a wins as the sort of eternal life grand prize, sort of hope. And I don't know if any of that sort of makes sense, but I guess now I'm just able to catalog and notice that my hope feels more real, feels more tangible, feels like something that I can work towards, as we discussed. And when it does happen, it just feels great, because I recognize at any given moment that it didn't have to.
Yeah.
And all
and
of this could just dissolve, right?
Right, and it's nice to just get that reinforcing cycle where, like you said, it's like you're hoping for smaller things, and there's usually a timeline with them. Some of them will work out, some of them won't, but you work towards it, and it is kind of a more magical existence in a sense, ironically, because there's not really magic involved. I'm using that as just a
right.
fun word, but like if you the old trite phrase of like you live in the moment, or this is all there is. Make the best of it and work at it. It's a lot different of an approach to life than like, oh, I got to check all these boxes and that pie in the sky is going to be amazing. I don't, once I get it, I don't know what kind of pie it is. They won't tell me. The description is pretty vague, but I hope it's awesome, and I'm never going to get the fulfillment of that hope in this life, but that's okay. So that hope has kind of been stripped away, and this like new iterative hope that kind of builds upon itself day to day. I think it's a lot more powerful in the end, even if like incrementally or by comparison, it feels a lot more small scale, but on purpose and more meaningful in that way. Right.
Well, Bob, for our final little segment here, we have some listener questions, but I'm going to change the script on you.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Here's what I'm thinking. So, my guess is that you probably did not bless your child. Is that correct? The typical sort of Mormon baby blessing?
Yeah, I'm way beyond that. I did not.
Correct to assume. Yes. So, we're going to do the business version. We're going to do the atheist version. I want you, if you would, just take a couple of minutes and, as if you were talking to your son, tell me as if you're telling him, what do you hope for your son? What's, as if it was the blessing, which that we tend to do. We go, here's all the things I want to see in your life. What would you say to your infant son now in terms of what your hopes are for him? And I'll give you a moment, and then whenever you're ready, go for it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No pressure. Just, I'll just, stream of consciousness here. I'll just speak as I think aloud, which is kind of what I do sometimes.
What's his name? Your son's name is Brendan.
His name is
right?
Brennan. Yeah. Brennan Dax okay. Caswell. Yeah. So you'd start by like, by the power invested in, or I don't even remember the phrases. No, I'm not going to go that far. No, but for Brennan, what do I hope for? I I hope that he I hope he gets some of the same opportunities I got, and even more. I hope he gets to experience life to its fullest. I hope he's surrounded by good people. He gets to make friends and learn and grow, find his passion. I hope he has fun hobbies. I hope he gets excited. I hope he gets to experience life in the same way that a lot of us do. There's just so much around you that you can take in, and then you kind of hone in on what's meaningful to you. And I'm so excited to see him go through that experience. I hope the infrastructure that he's born into stays as it is, and he has the resources to not worry about the basics of life, and he can sort of focus on learning and growing, independent of surviving out in the wild or whatever. But I hope he doesn't take for granted what he has as well. And so I'm excited because I feel like every generation it gets more progressive and has a better intuition into what makes the human condition so special, because as we move on, we sort of shed things like racism, sexism, homophobia, and I'm really excited for him to be born into a world that is better than it was before, notwithstanding the way the media portrays things and the way that every little crisis is magnified. I think ultimately he's got a good life ahead of him, and at the same time he'll have his own challenges, and I hope that what he can control can mitigate those challenges, and he learns and grows from them. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's my answer.
Bob, to that I say amen. That was awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Bob, thank you so much. This has been great. I had a great time.
Me too. I'm so happy that you're doing this. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think you got some interesting conversations and topics coming up. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I'm really excited too. Well, Bob, thank you for joining me, and here's hoping that this was helpful to people out there.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Bob. Thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Talk later. Bye.
And so ends the second episode of the New Atheist Guide to Not Being a Total Asshole. Let's review what we learned today. First, we learned that a loss in faith does not have to equal a loss in hope. Second, we learned that hope is one of the fundamental things that makes us human. It's something that we all share. All of us want a better life. All of us want a brighter future. All of us want health and happiness and good things for our friends and family and loved ones. However, as atheists, we can have a better understanding of the limitations of hope, recognizing the difference between things that we can control versus things that we can't. Honestly, as atheists, we can experience an even more meaningful version of hope, one where we recognize that there are no guarantees in life, that we recognize that truly we are powerless, and that when good things do happen, just how supremely lucky we are. The final thing we learned is that the hopeful atheist is a very real thing. Just because we don't necessarily believe the same way as we once did doesn't mean that there still isn't a universe of possibilities to look forward to, and an infinite number of good things that we can experience every single day. My hope is that you'll all join me next week for the next episode. Until next time, this is Sage saying, don't be an asshole.
Every street is dark and floating out mysteriously. Well, as the chance we take to be always working, reaching out for a hand that we can't see. Everybody's gotta hold on, hope it's the last thing that's holding me. Invitation to the last dance, and then it's time to leave. But that's the price we pay when we deceive one another. Animal mother, she opens up for free. Everybody's gotta hold on, hope it's the last thing that's holding me.
Thank you for listening to Infants on Thrones.